Fowles, mate. Mrs. Fowles, Senator.
You are now in the deep end of horror.
Jaws: The Revenge from 1987 is obviously and easily the worst Peter Benchley adaptation. The Razzies nominated it for Worst Picture, Actor, Actress, Supporting Actor, Director, and Screenplay. It won Worst Special Effects, even up against the notorious cheapie Superman 4: The Quest for Peace from Cannon. The special effects were so notoriously bad that they were actually redone for home video. An interviewer asked Michael Caine about Jaws 4, and he said, "I've never seen it, but by all accounts it is terrible. However, I have seen the house that it built, and it is terrific." Michael Caine won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for Hannah and Her Sisters, but was unable to attend because he was filming this, and because they only had him for 7 days, they couldn't let him go. I really like that Lorraine Gary, at almost 50, got to play the female lead in this, and it was her final part, so I guess she went out on a personal high note, if for the wrong movie. Wow, they really should have let Michael Caine star in Waterworld. After all, he's in all the other horrible water movies. He's in the worst Jaws film, Jaws: The Revenge. He's in the worst Peter Benchley adaptation, The Island. He's in the worst Poseidon Adventure movie, and yes, there are 4 Poseidon Adventure movies. He's in Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. In 1980, Michael Caine collected another fat vacation paycheck with The Island. This one is based on Benchley's novel of the same name, and he wrote the screenplay. The problem with having Benchley write the screenplay for his own novel is that there's a lot in the book and screenplay that works, but does not translate well to the screen. This was also the first year for the annual Razzies Award, and The Island was nominated for 2 of them, Worst Actor for Michael Caine and Worst Director for Michael Ritchie. While I won't disagree about Caine's overall performance, the moment where he discovers what is under the tarp towards the end of the movie is priceless. His facial expressions are perfect. A huge problem with the movie is that the child actor Jeffrey Frank, who plays Justin Maynard, has to portray a character that we sympathize with, who turns to the dark side, and that we hope will be redeemed. Between his performance and the script, though, you really want his character to die, and sooner rather than later. Jeffrey never appeared in another feature. Caine looks bored throughout, and actually calls Jeffrey by his real name when they're escaping the plane. Hilariously, all but the 4 characters necessary for the climax are gunned down in one sequence. I love David Warner, but even he spends most of his time sitting in a chair, looking bored.
Now, the most terrifying thing in the water is the island.
Jaws 3 in 3D. Peter Benchley's credit here is suggested by the novel Jaws, so don't blame him too much. This one, too, is no stranger to the Razzies, being nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Supporting Actor for Louis Gossett Jr., Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, and Worst New Star. I had the misfortune of seeing this with my friends Chuck and Calvin opening weekend. We ended up a little late and had seats at a rather severe angle to the screen. Not a big problem for 2D, but for 3D we all just got headaches and couldn't appreciate the effects of the movie properly. I guess that shows my love of movies, though that I can remember a showing I went to 36 years ago. Jaws 3 takes the ludicrous idea of having Sheriff Brody's traumatized children work at SeaWorld Orlando. I hardly know where to begin, but one of the things Benchley was careful to do in his books was to ground things in facts. Here there's no sense of reality. Their Orlando is apparently not landlocked like the real Orlando. Their sharks swim backwards. Their sharks snarl and growl. Their characters don't require decompression. I mean, I could just go on and on. Their skiers appear and disappear within the same scene. It's just terrible.
5 is right out.
The Deep is a pretty decent movie with a lot of great dive footage, but the poster advertises it as, "Is anything worth the terror of the deep?" making it seem like a successor to Jaws, but it's really an action-adventure film. The only terror is the rather urbane gangster, Cloche, played by Louis Gossett Jr. The movie's a bit overlong and inspired by and inspired a best-selling poster of Jacqueline Bisset in her wet t-shirt. Robert Shaw is wonderful as always, but isn't given much to do here, playing a treasure hunter like Mel Fisher, and stealing scenes from Nick Nolte. There are problematic elements related to the era of the film, such as all the good guys identify as white, and Cloche and his cronies are not, which puts rather an uncomfortable spin on the film. Also, the movie takes place on Bermuda, but none of the characters are Bermudan. The dive footage is of a real wreck, the RMS Rhone, and there's plenty of good footage of that, which I imagine would be a CGI wreck if filmed today. The film made a lot of money and stars out of Jacqueline Bisset and Nick Nolte, though is mostly forgotten today. Peter Benchley's The Beast. William Peterson is perfectly cast as Whip Dalton. It's really strange that William Peterson didn't really come into his own until CSI, because a decade before Beast, he had given perfect performances in To Live and Die in L.A., and especially Manhunter. Yes, the script about a gigantic squid terrorizing a vacation fishing community is perhaps not meant to be taken too seriously. However, there's a welcome undercurrent of feminism throughout the production, as the character of Lieutenant Catherine Marcus is consistently ignored, passed over, and generally not taken seriously, except by Whip. This one was advertised, again in a throwback to Jaws. They said it was safe to go back in the water. They were wrong. Larry Drake is fun as always as one of the other fishermen, and Charles Martin Smith is the de facto owner of the town, and unlike Murray Hamilton in Jaws, Smith is brought out to hunt the squid. The squid is pretty well done mechanically, but as in the later Jaws films, somehow the beast can roar.
3 shall be the number thou shalt count, and the number of the counting shall be 3.
I have a real soft spot in my heart for Jaws 2, because I saw it in theaters before I saw Jaws. And when I did see Jaws, it was on a tiny screen on the fledgling network HBO. So, Jaws is easily the better film, but I do have the soft spot for Jaws 2. Reevaluating now, Jaws 2 is a solid sequel, with Roy Scheider reprising his role as Sheriff Brody, Lorraine Gary as his long-suffering wife, and Hamilton as the venal mayor, and the giant shark action is fun, as is the final showdown. Unfortunately, there's no Robert Shaw or Richard Dreyfuss for him to interact with, so the non-shark bits tend to drag and lack the Spielberg magic. Jaws didn't really need a sequel, but it's easy to appreciate Jaws 2 for what it was. Summer escapist fun. Universal didn't let any grass grow under its feet and quickly greenlit this version of Jaws 2. It hired director John D. Hamilton, and he had a rather dark vision of the film, and so a month after filming began, John D. Hamilton was fired and was replaced by, and I apologize for butchering the name, Jeannot Sizewart. I have no idea how to pronounce that. The new director and Roy Scheider did not get along at all and argued constantly on set. Somehow they still managed to get this blockbuster finished, but apparently because of the delays, other companies were able to rush their Jaws knockoffs to market first. Mako Jaws of Death in 1976, Orca the Killer Whale in 1977, the Italian production Tentacles, also in 77, and Tintorera Killer Shark, also in 1977.
My number 2 man, his name? Number 2.
Creature from Peter Benchley. How does a story about a genetically bred shark man manage to be so entertaining? 2 words: cast and crew. Creature stars the ever-likable Craig T. Nelson as Dr. Chase, a scientist who believes that sharks may provide the cure for cancer, something further explored in the following year's Deep Blue Sea, but is just background here. Kim Cattrall is Dr. Mason, his intellectual and romantic equal, and Colm Fiore is Admiral Richland, but 2 other actors early in their careers steal all the scenes. Cress Williams is Tall Man here, but is now better known as Black Lightning. and Giancarlo Esposito, who would kill much later as Gus Fring on Breaking Bad, has a dual role here as Werewolf and Lieutenant Peniston. As far as crew goes, while the creature is a man in a suit, it's a man in a Stan Winston suit, and that makes all the difference. The master here has made just a wonderful, wonderful Sharkman suit, and is a lot of fun. Reveals are well timed, the monster looks great, and creature is just good, cheesy fun. Besides which, it has a big throwback to Aliens in it. Lee is basically the leader of a bunch of colonial marines, and they do rip off Aliens quite a bit, but it's good, cheesy fun. Enjoy.
We are number one. All others are number 2 or lower.
Jaws.
What can I say about the granddaddy, not only of all shark movies, but of all blockbusters and animal creature features? Definitely, all others are number 2 or lower. While One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which Jaws lost Best Picture to, is a classic, it's rarely seen today. But Jaws is brought back over and over again to theater revivals every summer, and it came out 44 years ago. It still stands as the best shark movie ever made, and virtually created what we now think of as the summer blockbuster movie. Jaws deservedly won Best Sound, Film Editing, and Music. Who doesn't instantly recognize John Williams' amazing theme? Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss work amazingly off each other, with Scheider's Sheriff Brody constantly caught between Shaw's cantankerous, scene-stealing Quint, and Dreyfuss's smart-alecky oceanographer Matt Hooper. Even the lesser roles are nearly perfectly cast. Lorraine Gary is great as Mrs. Brody, the kids don't make you want to scream, and you wince when Lee Fierro's Mrs. Kintner really slaps Sheriff Brody. Almost every line the leads say is quotable, and "You're Gonna Need a Bigger Boat" is one everyone knows even if they haven't seen the movie. The screenplay was wonderfully adapted from the book, jettisoning unnecessary subplots like Hooper's affair with Mrs. Brody. Besides spawning 3 sequels, Jaws spawned an entire subgenre of horror, the shark film. Its success led to Mako, Jaws of Death, Tintorera, Deep Blue Sea, The Meg, The Shallows, and 47 Meters Down, to name a few. Copycats applied the formula to other aquatic animals in Barracuda, Piranha 1 through 4, and Piranha, Orca, The Beast, and Tentacles. Land was not exempt, with Alligator, Grizzly, Crocodile, Killer Crocodile 2, 5 Lake Placid movies, 5 Anaconda movies, and on and on and on. I guess I want to talk about one scene that only means something if you're older, is the one where Quint crushes his beer cans. Nowadays, drink cans are so flimsy they almost crush themselves. But back then, it was a tough move to crush a hard can. Hence the humor when Hooper crushes his styrofoam cup. I guess that's really all I need to say, but if you haven't seen this movie, you need to see it, but it's much better on the big screen.
Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed the show. Go to see The Big Fix in October.